Makeda had always believed that love was supposed to feel safe. But loving Ha-jun, the cold, feared, untouchable Korean mafia boss, had felt like loving a storm. His presence dominated a room, his voice melted her strength, and his touch was something she could never forget. Yet the danger around him terrified her. So one night, with her heart breaking inside her chest, Makeda ran. She left Korea quietly, her last whisper in his penthouse being, "I love you, but I can't survive your world." Ha-jun woke up the next morning and felt a hollow ache he had never known. The boss who feared nothing was suddenly terrified. Terrified of losing the only woman he had ever allowed into his bruised heart. But Makeda disappeared into Ethiopia, blending into the lively streets of Addis Ababa, hiding her pain behind soft smiles. 2 months later, Makeda stared at a little white test in her hand. 2 bold lines. Her hands trembled, her knees weakened, and tears rolled silently down her cheeks. With his child, with the heir of the most feared mafia house in Seoul. "Ha-jun, what would you do if you knew?" she whispered to the empty room. She pressed a hand over her belly. A tiny heartbeat, a piece of him she could never run from. Ha-jun spent weeks searching every city, every border. His men watched airports, ports, hotels. He never slept. He barely breathed. Until one hot afternoon in Addis Ababa, as Makeda walked out of a clinic with her medical file pressed to her chest, a black Bentley stopped beside her. The door opened. Her heartbeat froze. Ha-jun stepped out. Sharp suit, cold eyes. But when he saw her, something broke inside him. Every wall, every shield, every mask. He walked toward her slowly, as if afraid she would vanish. "Makeda," he breathed, his voice trembling for the first time in his life. She swallowed hard. "Ha-jun, please don't." But then his eyes dropped to the file slipping from her hands. His gaze caught the words, 8 weeks pregnant. Time stopped. He lifted his eyes to hers. Hurt, disbelief, love, fear, all mixing into one storm. "Is that mine?" he whispered. Makeda's eyes filled with tears. She nodded weakly. Ha-jun stepped forward, cupped her cheeks with shaking hands, and pressed his forehead against hers. "Why did you run away with my heart?" he whispered. "Why did you carry our child alone?" Makeda broke into tears, collapsing into his chest. "Because your world scares me, and I didn't want to lose my child to your enemies." But Ha-jun held her tighter than he had ever held anything. "You are my world," he said, "and this baby is my peace." He brought her to a private villa outside the city. No guards inside, no guns, no threats, just them. Just love. That night, Ha-jun cooked for her himself, burning the pan twice until she laughed for the first time in months. He touched her belly gently, as if it was the most precious thing in the universe. "Makeda," he whispered, brushing her hair from her face. "I swear on my life, no danger will ever touch you again. You are the mother of my child. You are the woman I love." She looked into his eyes, the eyes she had been running from yet longing for. "I missed you," she confessed. He lifted her chin and kissed her softly, then deeper, pouring every month of loss and yearning into her lips. That night, they lay together, wrapped in warmth and forgiveness, their love blooming again like a reborn flame. At sunrise, Ha-jun knelt in front of her, hands trembling. "Makeda, come back to Korea with me, not as my runaway lover, but as the mother of my heir, as my woman, as for my future." He placed a simple silver ring in her palm. Makeda's tears shimmered like diamonds. "Yes, Ha-jun," she whispered. "I'm yours. We're yours." He kissed her belly. He kissed her hands. He kissed her heart. Ha-jun bought a mansion hidden deep in the mountains, far from mafia affairs, far from danger. A place where their baby would grow in peace, and where Makeda would be loved without fear. He protected her, cherished her, spoiled her, held her at night when her cravings kept her awake. Every ultrasound made Ha-jun cry. Every kick made him kiss her belly. Their love became warmer, softer, safer. She was no longer his runaway love. She was his home, and he was hers. Makeda's pregnancy was the calmest Hajun had ever been in his entire life. For the first time since he was a boy, he slept beside someone without fear. He woke to her soft breathing, held her growing belly every morning, and whispered to the child they created, "Appa is here. I will protect you and Yuriyama forever." But the day their baby arrived, nothing could have prepared him. It happened on a stormy night. The sky rumbled, rain crashing against the windows of their mountain home. Makeda was in the living room, wrapped in Hajun's jacket, when a sudden sharp pain ran through her stomach. She gasped. The glass in her hand fell. Hajun was by her side instantly. "Makeda? Are you all right?" Another wave of pain made her clutch his arm. Her voice trembled. "Hajun! It's time." His heart froze, but only for a second. Then the Mafia boss who once commanded armies of men lifted her into his arms like she was made of silk. "I've got you. Hold on, my love. I won't let anything happen to you." He carried her through the rain to the waiting car, one hand holding her tight, the other trembling on the wheel as he drove down the mountain. Every time she cried in pain, he whispered desperately, "Baby, please breathe. I'm right here. I'm right here." The moment they reached the private hospital he bought just for her safety, doctors rushed her in. Hajun stayed glued to her side, refusing to let go of her hand. She could barely breathe from the contractions. "Hajun, I'm scared." He kissed her forehead softly. "You're the bravest person I know. You gave me a new life, and now you're giving us a child. I'm here. I'm not leaving, Makeda." Then her voice broke. "Promise me, our baby will grow in peace." Hajun pressed his forehead to hers, eyes shining with tears he could no longer hide. "I promised that the day I found you again. You and our child are my whole universe." After hours of struggle, Makeda screamed as the final wave of pain hit her. And then, a tiny cry filled the room. A soft, powerful, beautiful cry. Makeda's tears streamed down her face. Hajun's breath caught. The doctor lifted a tiny, perfect baby boy into the air. "A strong son," he said with a smile. "Healthy and beautiful." Makeda collapsed back onto the bed, sobbing with joy. Hajun stared at the child as if witnessing a miracle. Then the nurse placed the baby in Makeda's arms. Hajun leaned over, hands shaking, and stroked the baby's tiny cheek with a tenderness no one would ever believe belonged to a Mafia king. "He looks like you," Makeda whispered. Hajun smiled softly. A rare, breathtaking smile meant only for her. "No," he whispered, voice full of wonder. "He looks like our love." Makeda carefully lifted the baby toward him. "Hajun, meet your son." He held the child as if he were holding the most fragile treasure in the world. His arms steady but his lips trembling. "Anyang, my little prince," he whispered. "I'm your Appa. I promise you will never grow up in darkness. I will change everything. For you, and for your mother." The baby opened his eyes, looking straight at him. That was the moment Hajun broke. Tears rolled down his face. Silent, raw, unstoppable. Makeda gently wiped his cheeks. "I've never seen you cry," she said softly. He leaned down, kissed her deeply, then kissed their baby. "You gave me something no amount of power ever could. You gave me a future." Hajun lay beside Makeda on the hospital bed, the baby between them, tiny fingers curled around his father's thumb. Makeda rested her head on Hajun's shoulder. He wrapped an arm around her, holding both of them close. "Thank you for not giving up on us," she whispered. Hajun kissed the top of her head. "I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you never feel fear again." Their baby made a soft sound, and Hajun smiled with pure tenderness. "Our heir," he murmured. "Our miracle." The weeks after their baby's birth were the softest days of Hajun's life. Every time he watched Makeda cradle their son, something inside him melted, something he never knew he still had. One quiet evening, he placed a kiss on her forehead and whispered, "I want you as my wife. Not tomorrow, not someday, now." Makeda's heart fluttered. Her eyes glowed with warmth. "Yes, Hajun, she breathed. I'm ready. Hajun didn't allow wedding planners or assistants to handle the important parts. He did everything himself because it mattered. He chose a private garden estate hidden behind cherry blossom trees, a small guest list, just trusted friends, loyal brothers, and Makeda's family, a pathway covered in white petals, a string quartet, playing soft Korean ballads mixed with Ethiopian melodies, a ring designed to represent them both. Korean jade encircled by Ethiopian gold. Makeda chose a dress that looked like a dream, white, flowing, elegant, with golden embroidery inspired by her heritage. When Hajun saw it, he lost his breath. The ceremony took place at sunset. Makeda appeared at the entrance of the garden, holding a bouquet of white peonies and Ethiopian lilies. Hajun stood at the altar in a black suit tailored to perfection. But when he saw her, his eyes filled instantly. The Mafia boss who never bent to anyone, bent to her. She walked toward him slowly, each step soft and angelic. Their son was asleep in a tiny cradle decorated with flowers beside the altar. Hajun whispered under his breath, "She's perfect." Makeda's eyes were locked on him the whole time. Her king, her protector, her love. Hajun's vow. He took her hands, his voice shaking slightly. "Makeda, you were the light I tried to run from, but you refused to stop shining. You gave me love, forgiveness, and the sun I never dreamed I'd have." He stepped closer, brushing his thumb across her cheek. "I vow to protect you, not with my guns, but with my heart. I vow to love you, not in secret, but loudly, proudly, for the rest of my life. You are the only home I will ever know." Makeda's tears fell softly. Makeda's vow. She smiled through her tears. "Hajun, I once ran from your world, but I never ran from you. Even when I was afraid, my heart always found its way back to you." She squeezed his hands gently. "You've shown me tenderness behind your strength, warmth behind your coldness, and devotion behind your power. I vow to stand by you, to love you, to build a peaceful world for our son, with you." Hajun wiped her tears with a single trembling kiss. The priest blessed their union. Hajun slid the jade and gold ring onto her finger. She slid a matching band onto his. Then he pulled her close, and with all the passion he had held for years, kissed her deeply, slowly, breaking into a rare smile against her lips. Their guests clapped softly. Cherry blossom petals rained gently from above. Even their baby cooed from his cradle, as if blessing their kiss. Their first dance was a blend of cultures. Korean tradition. A slow, graceful hold, Ethiopian rhythm. Soft shoulder movements and warmth in each sway. Hajun led her gently, one hand around her waist, the other holding her fingers like they were priceless jewels. "Wife," he whispered in her ear for the first time. She shivered. "Hajun," she breathed, smiling. "Say it again." He kissed the side of her neck. "My wife." They returned to their villa, where candles lit every corner and rose petals lined the path to their room. Their son slept peacefully in a nearby nursery. Hajun lifted her in his arms. "You're mine," he murmured softly. "Not because I own you, but because you chose me." Makeda cupped his face, love overflowing. "And I'll choose you again, always." Their night was slow and passionate, full of whispered promises and gentle devotion. The kind of love that healed every wound they had carried. The next morning, they lay tangled together under soft sheets, sunlight warming their skin. Their baby's soft sounds filled the room. Hajun kissed her forehead. "Makeda Kim Hajun," he murmured with pride. "My queen." Makeda looked up at him, her smile glowing like sunrise. "Our forever has begun." Hajun had spent his whole life in the shadows. The Mafia throne built from blood, loyalty, danger, and fear. But the morning after their wedding, when he woke to Makeda curled softly against him and their baby sleeping peacefully, he realized something with absolute clarity. He no longer belonged to the darkness. He belonged to them, his wife, his son, his home, his peace. Hajun called a private meeting with his inner circle. Men who had followed him for years, men who feared no one but him. They gathered at an abandoned warehouse at night, expecting a mission, a new order, another war. But Hajun stepped in with a calmness so powerful it silenced everyone. His wedding ring shone under the dim light. "Boss, what's happening?" one of them asked cautiously. Hajun took a long breath. "I'm done." The room froze. "I'm leaving the Mafia. Today." Shock spread like wildfire. One of his oldest men shook his head. "Hajun, you are the Mafia." Hajun's voice stayed steady, but soft, almost gentle. "No, I'm a husband now, a father, and I won't let my world ever touch them again." He placed his gun on the table. A symbol, a goodbye, a final decision. "If anyone tries to harm my family," he added, eyes sharpening briefly, "I will return, and I will not return alone." His men understood. This wasn't weakness. This was the strongest choice he had ever made. One by one, they bowed in respect. Some cried. Some whispered gratitude. But all accepted his freedom. Hajun walked out, never looking back. Makeda stood outside their villa, holding a lantern, worried in her chest. She hadn't asked him to choose, but she prayed he would. When she saw him walking up the path, the moon behind him, rain starting to fall, her heart began to race. "Hajun," she whispered, breath trembling. "Where have you been?" He walked straight to her, rain soaking his suit, eyes full of emotion she had only witnessed during their vows. He took her hands. His voice was low, raw, honest. "I did it." Makeda blinked. "Did what?" He cupped her cheeks with both hands, forehead resting against hers. "I left the Mafia, Makeda. I walked away from everything." Her lips parted in shock. She gasped softly. "For you," he whispered. "For our baby. For the life I want with you." Her eyes filled instantly, tears streaming down her face. "Hajun, you didn't have to sacrifice everything." But he pressed a soft finger to her lips. "It wasn't a sacrifice. It was freedom. You saved me from a life that was killing me slowly." He kissed her deeply, rain falling around them. Their bodies pressed together as if anchoring each other to the earth. The rain grew heavier. Makeda's dress clung to her skin, his hair dripping, but he didn't care. He lifted her face and kissed her again, this time with a passion that felt like rebirth. His voice trembled against her mouth. "I choose you, Makeda. I choose peace. I choose our son. I choose love." She buried her face in his chest, sobbing softly, holding him as if she feared he might vanish. "You're my miracle, Hajun," she whispered. "No one has ever loved me like this." He wrapped his arms around her tightly, breath warm in her ear. "No one ever will." The next morning, Hajun held their baby in his arms while Makeda watched softly, her heart overflowing. Their son gripped Hajun's finger with tiny hands. "I'm your Appa," he whispered, voice thick with emotion. "And I will never let you grow up in the darkness I knew." Makeda slid her arms around his waist from behind. "You're free now," she whispered. Hajun turned, kissed her hair, and whispered, "No, I'm home." Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment. Also like, share, and subscribe to my channel and click on the notification icon so that you will get notified whenever a new story is uploaded.